During a half-century of service, Converse Rubber Company has long been supplying the world's #1 shoe to the world's #1 sport. More fans throughout the world turn out to see basketball than any other sport in history. From Converse Rubber Company's original factory, founded in 1908 by the late M.M. Converse, came the first canvas shoe especially designed for the infant game of basketball. The first shoe used was all leather with a soft leather sole. Then came the canvas leather-trimmed shoe with 5 suction holes in a smooth rubber sole. Better traction was achieved with a molded rubber sole. To meet the demands of today's fast-moving game, Converse developed a form-fitting canvas upper, shock-absorbing sponge insole, and a cushioned arch with a scientifically designed, non-marking, molded rubber sole for positive traction on all types of courts. Today, from this modern factory, teams throughout the world are outfitted with the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star Basketball Shoe. The late Dr. James Naismith, in whose name basketball's Hall of Fame will rise in Springfield, Massachusetts, where he invented the game in a small college in 1891, could hardly have visualized then that his makeshift peach basket contest would attract 142 million shrieking, frenzied fans in the United States alone last year. James Alonzo Stagg, the grand old man of football, worked closely with Dr. Naismith at Springfield College and organized the first national high school tournament at the University of Chicago in 1919. Men like Oswald Tower, editor of the official rules since 1914, and George T. Hepburn, who continually aided officials and officiating techniques, have done much to develop this great game. John Doyle, editor of the Spalding Guide for 50 years, helped preserve the early records of the game, while Ralph Morgan was largely responsible for the formation in 1905 of the present National Basketball Rules Committee. The first well-dressed player wore standard gym clothes, used a soccer ball, and shot for the original peach basket. Players then appeared in modified football gear. Manufacturers made a special basketball, and the goal became a basket without backboard, with biased fans deftly directing the ball in or out of the hoop. Then came the heavily padded baseball uniform, complete with knee and elbow pads. The basketball was guided through a bottomless net on a wire backboard, which gave way to wood as the home teams learned to properly carom the shots off the bent wire. Today, with the roughness taken out of the game by the modern rules, uniforms are streamlined for speed. Players dribble the molded ball and shoot at glass backboards which permit better vision for the spectators. Great teams have played a vital part in the basketball cavalcade. The famous Buffalo, New York Germans won 111 straight games, meeting all comers from coast to coast, and won the first World Olympics title in St. Louis in 1904. Holyoke, Massachusetts High School won a tournament at the Buffalo Exposition in 1901 and was crowned the national interscholastic champion. Geneva College and the University of Iowa were the first schools to take up the sport in 1892, while Yale in 1902 won the Eastern Intercollegiate Crown as the Ivy Leaguers formed the nation's first college conference. The first women's college team, sophomores of Smith College, in 1893 did much to popularize the sport with the fair sex. Their fashions changed too, from the early midi blouse to the action-free garb of today. Great winning streaks have marked the growth of basketball, and maybe the greatest was the 159 straight wins of the wonder teams of Passaic, New Jersey High School from 1920 to 1925. Strangely, in the same period, there was another wonder team at Franklin, Indiana High School, which won the Hoosier State title 3 years in a row, and then went on as a unit to further glory at Franklin College. But maybe one of the greatest winning combinations in all professional basketball history was the original Celtics. Johnny Beckman, Nat Holman, Pete Barry, Dutch Dainert, Chris Leonard, and Joe Lapchick. These are the only movies ever made of this great team. Upon the game's 50th anniversary, at an exhibition at Madison Square Garden, they held a reunion against a squad of New York football giants. For the past decade, two of these Celtics have been famous college coaches. Nat Holman, a student of the fundamentals and the art of slick ball handling, led City College of New York to victory in 70% of its contests over a 35-year period. After spending a decade with the New York Knickerbockers, Joe Lapchick has returned to St. John's of Brooklyn, where he has had the habit of qualifying teams for the National Invitation Tournament. One of the many all-time professional stars was Benny Borgman, who led the Old American League in scoring for 7 years, while another was Ed Wachter, a member of the Troy, New York teams that were world champions from 1910 to 1915. Great arenas have risen in every section of the country, a far cry from the cramped halls, church basements, and makeshift gyms where the game was nursed. One of the first big campus arenas was this Iowa Fieldhouse. Seating over 20,000, the University of Minnesota's Williams Arena, built in 1927, is the nation's largest. The F.C. Allen Fieldhouse of the University of Kansas was named in honor of its famous longtime coach, Phog Allen, the only coach ever to lead college teams into more than 1,000 games. The University of Kentucky's Memorial Coliseum, home of the famous Wildcats, was built in 1950 and seats over 12,000. Adolph Rupp, the man in the brown suit, has piloted teams to an unprecedented 4 NCAA championships. The Reynolds Coliseum of North Carolina State College houses the famous Dixie Classic. Ned Irish did more, perhaps, than any other man to standardize the game by popularizing intersectional contests at Madison Square Garden, where since 1934, the nation's strongest teams have appeared. Today, many public arenas from coast to coast have followed suit. One of the most famous players in these intersectional games was Hank Luisetti, Stanford star of 2 decades ago, who popularized today's one-hand shot. George Keegan, coach at Notre Dame from 1923 to 1943, perennially turned the famous Irish into one of the country's strongest teams. Howard Kahn, one of New York University's all-time greats, has just retired after coaching at his alma mater for 35 years. Still another coach, colorful Ed Diddle of Western Kentucky, delights huge crowds with his powerful teams and his inimitable towel tossing to urge his teams on. Many styles of play have been evolved throughout the years. Foremost exponent of ball control has been the highly successful Hank Iba of Oklahoma State. Genial Frank Keeney, while coaching at the University of Rhode Island, introduced the fast break, which now is used by the majority of the nation's schools. The Roadies' frequent 100 points a game, with Ernie Calverley in the key role, pleased overflowing crowds of howling fans with their spectacular long passes, continuous running, and accurate shooting. There have been many great students of strategy who have been instrumental in basketball's popularity. The inimitable Dr. H.C. Carlson, while at Pittsburgh, originated the widely used figure 8. Lee Prater of Northwestern Louisiana State College, after 38 years of coaching, became president of that institution. Dr. Walter Meanwell, while at Wisconsin, was one of the more successful of the early coaches. Our deep appreciation for compiling this history of basketball goes to Mr. Facts and Figures himself, Bill Mocrae, nationally recognized as basketball's leading historian and statistician. These are some of the personalities who have helped give us modern basketball. This is the game as we know it today. Thousands of players each year, from biddy basketball to the great professional teams, have been served by Converse Rubber Company over the past 50 years. This season of 1957-58 has been the greatest in basketball history. And here are some of its highlights.
Dayton in the white uniforms, and they get the ball. Winners in 23 of 26 games during the regular season. The Flyers are the favorites tonight. Don Lane, number 14, over to Terry Bockhorn, and Bockhorn drives. Frank Case rebounds and scores. Now the Musketeers' turn, a beautifully coached team. Frank Tartaron laying it up there. He makes good on the rebound. Dayton ball, and they're being quite deliberate. This is the 5th time they've reached the finals and have yet to bring home the bacon. Frank Case shooting. His shot is off the rim, and Ducky Castell takes the rebound. A long pass to Hank Stein, and it's 2 points for Xavier. Once more the Flyers. Frank Case with the ball. Pretty! 41-39, Xavier leads as we go into the second half. It's Dayton ball. Don Lane feeding Jack McCarthy for the bucket. Having already defeated 2 of the 4-seeded teams, the Musketeers are determined to win it all. As Ducky Castell underneath. Dayton now trying to settle down. McCarthy in the pivot. Out to Lane. And over to Case. He's terrific. It's 67-all with 11 seconds to go. It's Dayton ball, and they're trying to set up big Jack McCarthy in the pivot. Jack hooks. No good. And it's Xavier's ball. Joe Viviano throws it the length of the court, just missing. And the score at the end of regulation time is all tied up at 67-all. Now the overtime. Xavier in possession. They're looking for the good shot. Hank Stein jumping and hitting. The Flyers come charging back. They need points. Don Lane with a long one-hander. It's 76-74 in favor of Xavier. Dayton with an all-court press. Oberding breaks loose under the basket, and Xavier wins the National Invitation Tournament as they beat Dayton 78-74. Musketeer Hank Stein, with a 4-game total of 90 points, is voted most valuable. It's the 5th game of the Major League playoff, each team having won 2. St. Louis wearing the dark jerseys, and they grab that tap. Jack McMahon, number 21, over to Slater Martin. Back to McMahon, over to Cliff Hagan. He makes good on the rebound. Now the Boston Celtics, the Eastern Divisional champs. Bill Shulman with the beauty of a jump shot. Again, the Hawks. That's Hagan with the ball. Pretty. Frank Ramsey brings it back for the Celtics. To Tom Heinsohn, whose shot bounces off the rim, and the Hawks take over. McMahon to Pettit for the bucket. 58-43, the Hawks lead as we move into the second half. It's St. Louis ball. Pettit's jumper is off, and Jack Nichols rebounds for Boston. Bob Cousy across the line. Back to Ramsey. It's in there. That's Cliff Hagan, number 16. A beautiful bounce pass to Slater Martin, and there's 2 more points for the Hawks. You can't beat this brand of basketball. The 2 top professional teams in the world. That's Frank Ramsey going for the ball and getting the bucket. Slater Martin brings the ball up for the Hawks, who have things just about wrapped up. Leading by 4 points with just a few seconds to go, St. Louis beats Boston in this one 102-100 and go on to win the National Basketball Association Championship 4 games to 2. The 12th annual College All-Star Basketball Game. 20 of the top players in the country assemble as East meets West in Madison Square Garden. West, wearing the white uniforms, takes possession. They're moving it around to get the feel of it. Mike Farmer of San Francisco. Swish. Now the Easterners. Connie Durking in the pivot. His pass is broken up, and it's West ball. Farmer hurrying it back. Over to Gene Brown. Pretty. Once again, the East. That's Guy Rogers, number 12. Boo Ellis of Niagara sets up a screen, and Guy has 2 points. Joe Stevens brings it back for the West. They've had the best of it here in the first half. Red Morrell shooting. Good. East trails by 7 at halftime. West with the ball as we begin the second half. Mike Farmer over to Gene Brown. Rogers intercepts, and here comes the East. Boo Ellis laying it in. Dave Gamby's long shot rolls off the rim, and the East rebounds. Temple ace Guy Rogers on the move. Ellis getting the basket again. The West fighting back. They've lost the lead, and time is running out. Mike Farmer shooting and connecting. Rogers brings it back for the East. They've built up a 10-point lead, but they're not letting up. Guy feeds Jerking for the final basket, and East beats West 70-58. Voted most valuable player, Guy Rogers receives his trophy. It's Biddy basketball, but first a Biddy cheer for both teams. In 7 years, this game has blossomed into a worldwide organization, a brainchild of Jay Archer. It's Bridgeport's ball, and Jim Appleby shooting. He hits. Puerto Rico has drawn the favor of the crowd in this 4-day tournament. Number 10, Joe Espada, has been acclaimed one of the best shooters in the tourney, and no wonder. Just watch. Good. Biddy basketball teaches good sportsmanship and allows the boys to play with equipment pared down so they can handle it with the same skill as their elders. A nice shot by Martinez. Biddy basketball is played in all of the 48 states as well as 17 foreign countries. The dead-eye shooters from Bridgeport seem to have the upper hand in this game. Jim Appleby swishes the net from outside to keep his team in the lead, and at halftime, Bridgeport leads Puerto Rico 21-18. Boys over 5 feet 6 inches are prohibited from playing Biddy basketball, but what they lack in height, they make up in springboard leap. Martinez finally gets the basket. Puerto Rican coach yells instructions to his players, but Bridgeport's all-around play is too much to overcome. Jim Appleby steals the ball and assists Jim Lighty to a field goal that spells victory for Bridgeport. The juvenile basketeers from Connecticut become the new Biddy basketball champions of the world as they edge Puerto Rico 49-46. It's the 8th annual NBA All-Star Game. The West wearing the white, and they get that ball. Slater Martin screens for George Yardley. His shot is off, and the East rebounds. New York's Richie Guerin brings it across the center line. He gives off to Neil Johnson of the Warriors, and Neil's sweeping hook is in there. This is strictly a battle of experts all the way. Dick McGuire misses, and Dolph Shays rebounds. A long pass to Bob Cousy, and the crackerjack from Boston puts it away. Maurice Stokes' jump shot is off the rim, and Guerin rebounds for the East. Syracuse's Larry Costello misses from the side, and Big Bill Russell grabs the rebound. Johnston's hook is off the rim, and here comes the West on a fast break. McGuire to Stokes for the basket. It's 66-61 in favor of the West at halftime. Second half, and East is trying to set up a score. Harrison, number 11. Over to Bob Cousy, and watch this shot. Once again, the West. Bob Pettit's jump shot rolls around the rim and out, and Guerin rebounds for the East. Ritchie brings it across the center line and sets up a screen for Bob Cousy. Bullseye. George Yardley brings it back for the West. Over to Gene Shue. Right on the button. Cousy to Russell to Arizin, and Pitch and Paul gets 2 of his 24-point total. Individual honors for the night go to St. Louis's Bob Pettit. Look at him drive. That's 28 for Bob. But sparked by a great team effort, the Easterners take their 6th game in this great annual classic. With a final basket by Bob Cousy, the East All-Stars win over the West by a record-shattering score, 130 to 118. Setting two individual marks of 28 points and 26 rebounds, Bob Pettit is voted the game's most valuable player. Every year, the Converse Rubber Company is proud to present the official National Basketball Association All-Star Team. From the Major League of Basketball, where the fastest and finest brand of play takes place, here are capsule portraits of the 5 top players. Dolph Schayes of the Syracuse Nationals. A 29-year-old veteran who played his college ball at NYU, Dolph is an extraordinary all-around player. At rebounding and shooting, he's always terrific. George Yardley of the Detroit Pistons, a graduate of Stanford University. George is a 5-year veteran in the NBA. An effortless ball hawk, he is deceptively fast and agile. That's George, number 11. Bob Pettit of the St. Louis Hawks. Bob played his college ball at Louisiana State University. A 6'9" superstar, Pettit sparked the Hawks to their first NBA championship. Watch Pettit in the pivot. There he is. Bill Sharman, the Boston Celtic ace, ex-Southern California. The master of the soft one-hander, Bill's got an eye for the target like few in the game. A fine defensive player and number 1 in free throwing, Sharman's on the All-Star once again. Bob Cousy, last but not least. As a matter of fact, the former Holy Cross All-American rates every superlative in the book. So much of a wizard at ball handling, shooting, playmaking, and defense, Cousy's called by some as Mr. Basketball himself. Number 14, Bob Cousy. It's Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky. 18,000 fans. Seattle meet Kentucky in the NCAA final. Seattle and the Dogs, and they have the ball. Elgin Baylor, jump shooting. It's off the rim, and the Wildcats from Kentucky take over. This is their 10th appearance in this tournament, winning the title a record 3 times. Vern Hatton feeds John Kriegler, who drives and scores. Seattle ball. In quest of their first title, they've eliminated Wyoming, San Francisco, California, and Kansas State on the trail to the finals. Once again, Kentucky. That's Johnny Cox driving. Baylor rebounds for the Chieftains, and that's the start of a fast break. Brown misses the layup, but Elgin is there to back him up. Coached by the famed Adolph Rupp, the Wildcats have trailed most of the way. When Don Mills hits the jump shot, Seattle leads by 3 at halftime. Now the second half, Kentucky with the ball. That's Hatton. Into Mills, who drives around Baylor for the score. Pretty play. Brown has it over to Baylor. His long jump shot bounces off the rim, and Kriegler rebounds for the Wildcats. That's Adrian Smith bringing it back. Over to Hatton, and Vern drives in for the basket. Curling for the first time since early in the game, Seattle comes fighting back. The alert Mr. Baylor steals it, and he goes all the way. Seattle battles down to the wire, but they can't overtake the Wildcats. With the final basket by Johnny Cox, Kentucky wins over the West Coast rivals 84-72, the first ever to win 4 NCAA titles. Here is the All-American basketball team for 1958, compiled by Chuck Taylor, Converse ambassador to the basketball world. Over 700 of the nation's best coaches, sports writers, and sports broadcasters assisted in this selection. In making up the team, Chuck weighed not alone scoring ability, but the players' defensive qualities too. Qualities which are equally essential to the performance of a properly balanced winning combination. Archie Dees of Indiana University, an outstanding all-around player, Dees has the distinction of being selected most valuable player in the Big Ten for the 2nd straight year. the only time in history of the award a player had repeated. Averaging better than 25 points per game, Archie led the Hoosiers to another conference title. That's Archie Dees driving for the score. Elgin Baylor of Seattle University. 6 feet 6 inches tall and a junior from Washington, D.C., he is undoubtedly one of the greatest players ever to perform in the Pacific Northwest. Baylor has drawn the plaudits of experts and fans alike wherever he has played. In his 2 years of competition, Elgin has averaged over 30 points per game. Here we see him scoring in the NCAA final. Look at that big man move. Oscar Robertson of the University of Cincinnati. Just a sophomore, he has been acclaimed as the outstanding individual star ever to don the Bearcat uniform. Oscar led the nation in scoring this past season with a fabulous 35-point average and set team marks in total points, per game average, most field goals, and best field goal percentage. Number 12, that's Oscar Robertson. Pete Brennan of the University of North Carolina. A 6 foot 6 inch senior from Brooklyn, Pete is an accurate shooter both in and out. He led the Tar Heels with a better than 20-point average and was considered one of the fastest and most versatile big men in college basketball. Pete is noted for his uncanny jump shot. Just watch it here. Wilt Chamberlain of the University of Kansas, shown here with the coach of the Jayhawks, Dick Hawk. 7 feet tall, Wilt the Stilt is deaf under the boards. In his 2 years of varsity play for the Jayhawks, Wilt has set many school and conference records, including most points in a game, highest season's average, and most rebounds for a career. Wilt Chamberlain, he's terrific. Dick Barnett of Tennessee State University, an extremely fast and agile player. Watch Dick score on a jump shot. Having sparked his team to an NAIA championship, Dick won the Chuck Taylor Award on the basis of performance during the tournament. Joe Hobbs of the University of Florida, 6'1" and captain of the Gators, Joe is recognized as the greatest player ever to play for Florida. He is a wizard at ball handling and a very capable playmaker. That's Joe scoring on a jump shot. Vern Hatton of the University of Kentucky, 6'3" and a senior from Lexington, Kentucky, Vern sparked the Wildcats to an NCAA championship. A tireless ball hawker and a fierce competitor, Hatton rounded out his career by leading his team in scoring. Here you see him racking up 2 with a long one-hander. It's up and good. Don Hennon of the University of Pittsburgh. Just 5 feet 8 inches and a senior from Wampum, Pennsylvania, Don was considered one of the greatest small men in the college game. His better than 25-point average ranked him as one of the leading scorers in the country. There's Don Hennon of Pittsburgh. Finally, Guy Rogers of Temple, a 6-foot senior from Philadelphia. Guy sparked the Owls to the midseason ECAC championship in New York. His great defensive talent, his flawless feeding, and floor generalship make him a worthy choice for Chuck Taylor's Converse All-America College team. Concluding our Converse basketball championship highlights is the most famous single quintet in the world, the Harlem Globetrotters. Their inimitable exhibitions throughout the world have brought another form of comedy to the entertainment world. Once more the Trotters, and more fooling for their thousands of fans. Walking? Who, me? But the folks who come to see these fabulous barnstormers like nothing so much as their marvelous dexterity. That's Herman Taylor, the maestro of the dribble. Nice going. Actually, the score means rather little in this game, and even this out-of-bounds play is a bit unusual. That's Mr. Lemon with the beauty of a hook. The Spars, a picked group of stars, like to play it straight. Ed Matson has the ball. He shoots and misses, and the Trotters get the rebound. Now just watch them bring it back. Come on, boys. You know that ain't legal. I'll take the ball. Whoops! Lemon in the pivot and wearing a fedora. This might be called the hat trick. They're looking to feed Meadowlark in the pivot. He's got it. He's fouled, and he's hurt. Say, let's keep it honest, friends. The foul line is back there. Just another one of their barrel full of tricks. The Philadelphia team now on the attack. Kevin Thomas drives in and scores. But wait, where's the ball? Look out, ref! Late in the game, the Trotters turned basketball to baseball. Lemon at bat. The pitch. It's a base hit into right center field. And how much do you want to bet it's an inside-the-park home run? Here he comes, rounding third, heading for home. Yes, sir, safe at home. And the world-renowned Harlem Globetrotters wind up another hilarious session. They may not play according to the rules, but they can sure be sharp when they have to. The Clown Kings of Sport.